How's it going, everybody? Lampini again. It's another fantastic week of football. Today we're going to be covering Week 14. Was Week 13 unlucky for some? Certainly was. Let's go over it. So our first matchup for Week 14, we have our Thursday night game. We got the Las Vegas Raiders at the LA Rams. So the Rams, well, they kind of are a dumpster fire right now with the recent news of Jimmy Garoppolo going down and Baker Mayfield getting waived. There is a chance the Rams pick up Baker Mayfield.
What's up, guys? Lampini editing and post here. So it turns out, as I was editing this video, I found out that Baker Mayfield is now on the LA Rams. Will this make a difference in my prediction? Absolutely not. But I just wanted to add this in because news changed as I had updated and edited my video.
But I think the Rams are, well, if they aren't already, they are officially the worst Super Bowl hangover that we have ever seen in NFL history. Right now they're 3-9. They could potentially lose out, become 3-14. It seems like that's how the Rams' history has always gone, though, because you remember in the early 2000s when they were the greatest show on turf, as soon as the Patriots beat them in 2002, they were basically, bottom dwellers. And then they didn't reach a playoff again until 2004, and then they had a really long playoff drought before they made it again when Sean McVay took over again. So will he be able to right the ship? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens once Matt Stafford comes back next season, but they're very much looking towards next season. As for the Raiders have quietly gotten themselves back into contention here. So they're 5-7. They have won their last 3 games, but not only that, they've won it in pretty impressive fashion. They beat the Chargers 27-20, which was a good showing. Another great showing by their offense again. Derek Carr was 16 of 30, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 89.6 passer rating. Josh Jacobs had 26 carries for 144 yards and a touchdown. And then Devontae Adams had 8 receptions for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. So this is what I was kind of saying, that the Raiders have always been able to score points this season. It's just they haven't been able to put away games. There are a lot of games that they should have won. If you remember early in week 2, I think it was, they had the opportunity to beat the Cardinals, but the Cardinals came back and won. So it's starting to look like the Raiders are getting a bit of momentum. Their team is starting to come together. And right now, the Chargers are one of the teams that are in the hunt right now. So if the Raiders manage to defeat the Chargers, they may be on their way, and they might actually make a really compelling last chance playoff push. And if that happens, who knows? Because when a team comes out hot or ends the regular season hot like the way the Raiders are now, sky's the limit for them because it's an even playing ground in the playoffs. And looking at their remaining schedule, they have the Rams, then they have the Patriots, Steelers, 49ers, Chiefs. So there's a strong possibility that out of those 5 games, they win 4 of them. That would put them at 9-8. And that may just be good enough for them to make the playoffs. The only team, the one loss obviously coming from the Chiefs, but Patriots, Steelers, 49ers, I think those are all teams the Raiders can beat. They can beat the Chargers, they can beat any of those 3 teams, but they really got to buckle down. But it's going to start with this win. Once they get this win, their confidence will be starting to they'll really start to be going here. I think that with the way both these teams are trending, I think this is going to be an easy win for the Raiders, especially because the Rams don't have anybody. They have John Wolford as their quarterback. They're not really going anywhere. So I'm going to be going with the Raiders for the Thursday night game. So next up, we got a rematch from a couple weeks ago. We have the New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. Both of these teams, no, that's not true. The Jets are coming off of a loss. They lost to the Vikings 22-27. The Jets had a bad turnover in the end zone, which kind of hurt their chances of beating the Vikings, but they put up a really good fight. Mike White did not have the kind of game that he had last week. He was 31 of 57 for 369 yards, 2 interceptions, and a 59.8 passer rating. So he threw the ball 57 times. It's one of the highest totals this season. And then Garrett Wilson had 8 receptions for 162 of those yards. So I think Mike White, this is kind of what I was expecting. I was expecting Mike White to have a marked step down from what he did last week rather, because he's playing a much better team in the Vikings. So It was a bit expected that he would fall off, but he had a really bad game. A 59.8 passer rating is not good at all. The Jets are in a very unique situation right now where they have a defense that can take them really far. And they have offensive weapons like Garrett Wilson. And well, they did have Breece Hall, but he got hurt. But they have weapons that can carry them over the top and really, win. However, they're held back by their quarterback. And it's weird because, in my opinion, Joe Flacco gives them the best chance to win just because he's a veteran and he was playing really well earlier in the season. However, I do understand why they want to give Mike White a chance, because he could potentially be their future. I see a lot of the Taylor Heineke in Mike White, where he's an unexpected quarterback rising up through the ranks. So from that perspective, I can see it. As for the Bills, they had a very convincing win over the Patriots, 24-10. You'll see it in my playoff predictions later, but they are now once again the number 1 seed. Josh Allen was 22 of 33 for 223 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 106 passer rating. So he had a very solid game. Stephon Diggs had 7 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown. So another solid game by Stephon Diggs. It was a very solid, typical Bills performance. The way things are going now, I think it's like the Bills are going to beat teams like the Patriots. All eyes are going to be on the Bills once they reach the playoffs, because they are a playoff team. Well, they're more than a playoff team. They're a Super Bowl team. All eyes are going to be on them. So a lot is to be said about the Bills. Who's going to win in this game, though? If I remember correctly, the Jets won last game. It was quite the upset. The Jets don't have Breece Hall anymore, and they don't have Zach Wilson holding them down. But it's in Buffalo, and I don't think the Bills are going to drop to the Jets. I think they learned how to combat the Jets following their loss, and I think they're going to easily come away with this one. Next up, we have the Ohio Bowl. We have the Cleveland Browns at the Cincinnati Bengals. So all-around women respecter Deshaun Watson returned to the NFL again, playing his first regular season game of football since Week 17 of 2020. And boy, did it look it. He was 12 of 22 for 131 yards, 1 interception, and a 53.4 passer rating. Yet, the Browns still beat the Texans 27-14. The Browns pretty much scored in every conceivable way except on offense. So they kicked 2 field goals, they had a pick 6, they fumble recover touchdown, and a punt return touchdown. So the Browns basically won in spite of Deshaun Watson. I think the Browns are very much looking to the future because Deshaun Watson is not it right now. He's going to have to learn the playbook. He's going to have to shake some of that rust off of him. And then maybe in 2023, who knows? He may be able to be a force to be reckoned with. But, it's quite the risk. As for the Bengals are doing what they did last season, getting really hot near the end of the year. Joe Burrow was 25 of 31, 286 yards, 2 touchdowns, 126.6 passer rating. Extremely impressive. And then Jamar Chase, in his first game back, had 7 receptions for 97 yards. A huge asset for them. They beat the Chiefs 27-24. They beat them in the conference championship last year. They beat them here. So the Bengals are establishing themselves as Super Bowl contenders again. And with a real victory over the Chiefs, not a fluky victory, a real victory over the Chiefs, they really are proving their contendership right now. This is going to be a layup game for the Bengals. Like I said, the Browns are kind of looking towards the next season. They're really trying to maybe get Deshaun Watson ready for next season. And these last couple games are what's going to do it. I really hope he doesn't get the hang of his offense when they play the Commanders, because it seems like a pretty easy win for us. So fingers crossed that they haven't figured it out, but I'm going with the Bengals. So this next game, we have the Houston Texans at the Dallas Cowboys. Texans, they lost 27-14 against a Browns team that didn't even score 1 offensive touchdown. And the Cowboys beat the Colts 54-19. They had 33 points in the fourth quarter. Incredible. They had 1 fumble return touchdown, but everything else was long, sustained drives. The Cowboys looked like $1 million. We have 3 different players have a rushing touchdown. Tony Pollard had 12 carries for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Dak Prescott was 20 of 30 for 170 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception for 100.7 passer rating. So The Cowboys looked like a juggernaut in this game. For me, it's really hard to trust the Cowboys when they play well like this, because it's like, are they going to keep playing this well, or are they going to go out in the divisional round like they always do? I don't know. They're not going to get the bye because the Eagles are 2 games ahead of them. No matter how good the Cowboys play, the Eagles are, they're ahead of them. They're 11-1. So there's no way the Cowboys are going to get that 1 seed. But they're looking good. What else can I say? But you know what? They looked good last year too. They were Super Bowl contenders last year. There was an analyst that said that the odds-on favorite now to win the Super Bowl is the Dallas Cowboys. I don't believe that for a second. I could name 3 teams off the top of my head, four. I'll say 4 teams that have. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do more than 4. These are teams that I think have a better chance at winning the Super Bowl than Dallas. The Chiefs, the Bills, the Vikings, the Eagles, the Bengals even. That's 5 teams right there that I think have a better chance than the Cowboys. When teams get into the playoffs, playoff experience I think is very important as well, because you see a lot of teams go one and done in the playoffs, and then you see teams like the 49ers that have playoff experience win games that they may not be expected to win. I don't think the Cowboys are a team that's built to win the playoffs. This is a classic Dallas Cowboys game. They did this against the Commanders or the Washington football team last season when they scored like 50 points against us. They bully subpar competition and blow them out of the water. But if they play an actual team of quality, like San Francisco, for example, they're not able to do some of the stuff that they're able to do, and they end up falling short. I can easily see that happening again. In this game, absolutely not. The Cowboys are obviously going to win this one. Our next contest, we got the Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. The Lions, once again, putting up a fantastic performance against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They won 40-14. The Lions have been the most polarizing team this season, because on one hand, they'll do this. They'll score 40 points and blow out their competition, and then they'll come up short and lose. So they are extremely bipolar, but they're 5-7 right now. They're in a similar situation to the Raiders, where they're technically not eliminated, but I think the Raiders have a better chance because the wild card is a bit weaker. So Jared Goff was 31 of 41, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 115.9 passer rating. So very impressive numbers there. Amon-Ra St. Brown again, 11 receptions, 114 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Fantastic showing by him. They ran over Jacksonville. It wasn't even close, which is still so bizarre considering how well the Jaguars did against the Ravens last week. And then you got the Vikings, who defeated the Jets 27-22 in their characteristic last-minute fashion. A lot of people are saying they're the worst 10-2 team ever. I do think that they've been on the right side of some really close games, and I think that they could maybe be 9-3, maybe even 8-4. But I do think the Vikings are legit. It would not surprise me if they were one and done in the playoffs, though, just because of how close and down to the wire a lot of their games have gone. Kirk Cousins was 21 of 35, 173 yards, a touchdown, 82.2 passer rating, and then Dalvin Cook had 20 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown. So good work there by their offensive weapons. Who's going to win in this game? Listen, it's a divisional matchup. It would not surprise me if the Lions pulled off the upset. It would really save their season if they did. Like, if the Lions win one more time and they're 6-7, then it's like, okay, we might be getting somewhere with them. But that being said, the Commanders haven't even made the playoffs yet. They're 7-5-1, and they're on the outside looking in. So the Lions still have a lot of work to do. They would need the Giants, most likely the Giants or the Seahawks, I think, to really just have a terrible last stretch. Or the 49ers, because they lost Jimmy Garoppolo. But they need a team to really start falling off these last couple weeks, and they need to keep winning games as well. Their ceiling is 11-7. That's if they win out. So they still have a chance. But I am going to be going with the Vikings on this one. All right, so next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Tennessee Titans. Both of these teams are coming off of really bad losses. I already explained the Lions one, but the Titans lost 35-10 against the Eagles. Now, is that the Eagles being the best team in the NFL, or is it the Titans being exposed? I think it's a little bit of both. I think the Titans are really benefiting from being in a terrible division. They are still 7-5, but they have not looked good in a lot of their losses. They scored 0 points in the second half. Ryan Tannehill was 14 of 22 for 141 yards, 1 touchdown, 97 passer rating, which isn't bad, but completing 14 passes isn't going to do it, right? So that's not good. In terms of the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence was 17 of 31, 179 yards, 1 touchdown, 82.6 passer rating. So again, this is a rebuild year again for the Jaguars. They're 4-8. A lot of this is just going to have to do with Doug Peterson getting his legs under him as the head coach. Trevor Lawrence continuing to progress, which he is. He's doing well with that. But I do think the Titans are going to win this game. I think Derrick Henry is going to go off. I hope Derrick Henry goes off. Could really use him. I want in fantasy this week, so now I'm a whopping 2-11. But it would be great to see Derrick Henry go off, maybe get myself another win. I'm going to be going with the Titans on this one. All right, so this next one is probably the most interesting game of the week. We have the Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Giants. So you all saw what happened. The Giants tied the Commanders last week. So before we get into the actual stats of the game, because the Commanders are on a bye, I'm going to give my quick little review of what I thought of the game. I thought that the Commanders came out really strong. The Giants got themselves back into it. The Commanders were down 7 points in the fourth quarter. They led a really, really good game, not game-winning, but game-tying drive to make it go 20-20. Their defense really stepped up as well. There were multiple 3-and-outs that the Commanders' defense forced, which I like to see that. And then in overtime, it's not one of those things where neither team was executing. I think it was a matter of both defenses were still fresh enough to stop the offenses. It was a defensive struggle in overtime where both teams were ramming their head. Listen, the Giants in overtime got the ball in good field position a lot of the time. They were on their own 40 for a lot of those possessions. They only needed to move the ball realistically 20 or 30 yards to kick a field goal and win, and it didn't happen. I think that is really, really good for the Commanders' defense. Obviously, a tie knocks us out of the seeding, so now we're on the outside looking in. However, if the Eagles win this week, both of us will be 7-5-1, but we will have a better divisional record, so we will then slot back up to the 7th seed. So I'm kind of rooting for the Eagles on this one. The Eagles, again, looked really good against the Tennessee Titans. Jalen Hurts was 29 of 39, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, 130.3 passer rating. And then A.J. Brown having another amazing game. 8 receptions, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Eagles look, they look great. Like, I don't know where this whole pretender nonsense is coming from. 35-10 for a 7-4 Tennessee Titans team who's a perennial playoff team. They are blowing teams out of the water. And it's going to be interesting to see if this translates over to the playoffs or if they're one of those one-and-done teams. Because as it stands right now, the Eagles could go 16-1. I think they're good enough that they can do that. And I do think they are going to beat the Giants here. Daniel Jones was 25 of 31, 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 104.3 passer rating. He got way too many rushing yards against us. We were very evenly matched with them. It wasn't a bad tie. I mean, it was the better outcome for us because their kicker missed a field goal that would have given them the win. So I'll take that, I guess. But in this game, I'm going to have to go with the Eagles. This next game, we have the Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers beat the Falcons, which was very, very good for them. They have been on quite the winning streak recently. They've won 3 of their last 4, the Steelers have. So now they're 5-7, and they're in a similar situation to the Raiders. If they win out, they might backdoor themselves into the playoffs. Can you imagine how the Steelers were looking if they somehow managed to have a plus 500 record? It's possible, but they can only afford to lose one more game. Kenny Pickett was 16 of 28, 197 yards, and a touchdown for a 90.7 passer rating, so it wasn't bad. It was a moral victory, is the best way I can describe it, against the Falcons. The Ravens. The Ravens have looked really bad these last couple weeks. They barely beat the Broncos. It was 10-9, and the only reason they won is their last drive. They drove down the field and scored a touchdown, but the Broncos were in control of that entire game. The Ravens scored a field goal in the second half, and that's all they scored up until the last minute of the game. I don't know what's going on with the Ravens, but they played bad against the Panthers, barely beat them. They played bad against, who did they play last week? Well, they played bad against the Broncos. They played bad. I should know this because I'm in freaking Baltimore. Yeah, Jacksonville. They let Jacksonville drive down the field, score a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion to win. The Ravens in these last 3 games have looked bad. They may be 2-1, but they have looked bad. So, and Lamar is most likely not going to play. I think he has a PCL sprain, so he could be out from 1 to 3 weeks. So it's not likely he's going to play. For what it's worth, Tyler Huntley was 27 to 32, 187 yards, 1 interception for a 78 passer rating. I think Tyler Huntley is a good quarterback. I think that on any other team, he could be a low-tier starter. He's kind of like a diet Lamar Jackson, so it's very smart the Ravens have him on their roster because they can kind of use the same playbook with him. So he gives them a fighting chance, but the Steelers have been playing really good. Like I said, they won 3 of their last 4. And that one loss was against the Bengals, who, are playing great. This could be a bad loss for the Ravens as well because the Bengals are nipping at their heels. And if the Bengals win, which they probably will against the Browns, and the Ravens lose, the Ravens are not in control of their destiny anymore. They're still going to be in the wild card picture, but they won't have home field advantage in the playoffs, which is not good. I am going to be going with the Steelers on this one. It's at home. The Ravens have not looked good at all. I think that the Steelers, I don't think the Ravens have beaten the Steelers this decade either. I think the last time they beat them was in 2019. So the Steelers are 4-0 against the Ravens since the 2020s. I think that streak's going to continue, and I'm going to be going with the Steelers. So for our next contest, we have the Kansas City Chiefs at the Denver Broncos. So both these teams are coming off of losses. One was a lot more embarrassing than the other. The Broncos really had a chance to defeat the Ravens, and it would have been considered a huge upset. The Broncos are 3-9 right now, and I'd say they're the second worst team in the league behind the Texans. Russell Wilson was 17 of 22, 189 yards, and 102.3 passer rating. So one of Russell Wilson's best games in terms of completion percentage and passer rating, but he's still not good. He still has not thrown more touchdowns than Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz has played half the season. It is really astounding. Nathaniel Hackett has got to go. They need to build their entire offense around Russell Wilson's strengths with the amount of money they have sunk into him. I still don't know why they gave him that extension before he played a single snap. The Broncos are just in trouble. They're in probably the worst situation right now of any team in the NFL. As for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes was 16 of 27, 223 yards, a touchdown, a 98.2 passer rating. He also ran for a touchdown as well. For this, I chalk it down to the Chiefs aren't perfect. You lose some. They lost to a top-tier opponent. It's a team that they may meet again in the playoffs, though. But this isn't an embarrassing loss by any means for the Chiefs. It was a one-possession loss. They just need to build back. Oh, I almost said build back better. They need to come back stronger, build themselves back up for when they do meet them again. They won't be swept 3-0 in the last 2 seasons playing the Bengals. Going to keep this one brief. The Chiefs are going to win this one. I don't see any chance that the Broncos have in beating the Chiefs. If the Broncos beat the Chiefs, it'll be the biggest upset of the season. So I'm just going to call that right there. Remember I said that. So next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the San Francisco 49ers. The Buccaneers overcame a 13-point deficit in the fourth quarter to defeat the Saints. I was really hoping the Saints were going to win. There's something funny about a 5-17 leading the division. Just see how bad a division leader can get. But Tom Brady does what Tom Brady does, and he does it again. Overcomes a fourth quarter deficit and wins. He was 36 of 54, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception for an 84 passer rating. So it wasn't his best game, but he got it done in the end. And I don't care how weathered, how old Tom Brady is, he is always going to be a threat. And that's how I see Tampa Bay. They are always going to be a threat. I mean, there's not much to say about that. As for the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo is now out for the season. They lost Trey Lance, and I was thinking, okay, well, they still have Jimmy Garoppolo. He's been their quarterback for however many years now. They're going to be fine, right? But like I said, they lost him. But that being said, they beat the Dolphins 33-17. So, like, I don't even know it doesn't matter who's quarterback of the 49ers, it seems like. They still find a way to win. They beat a good Miami Dolphins team. that hasn't lost in weeks, and they still came up winning. So it's one of those things where ordinarily a team loses their starting quarterback. I mean, technically Jimmy Garoppolo is their second string, but he might as well be their starter because he has been. They lose it, and then the season's pretty much over for them. But the season is not over for San Francisco, even though they've lost 2 of their quarterbacks. Now, are they going to go after Baker Mayfield? I don't know. If they can continue like doing well with Brock Purdy, their quarterback, who he played pretty well, they may not see an incentive to grab Baker, because Baker may do more harm than good. It's a crazy situation with the 49ers. What's going to happen in this game? I'm going to be going with the 49ers because Tampa Bay's win was still pretty ugly when they really should have beat the Saints black and blue, basically, because the Saints aren't a very good team. And the 49ers, despite losing Jimmy Garoppolo very early, Jimmy Garoppolo only threw 4 passes in the entire game, they still won 33-17 against a Dolphins team that was 8-3, which I think is incredibly impressive. So I am going to be going with the San Francisco 49ers to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For our next game, we have the Carolina Panthers at the Seattle Seahawks. So the Panthers are coming off of a bye. They beat the Broncos 23-10. In that game, it was Sam Darnold's first start. He was 11 of 19 for 164 yards and a touchdown. And then Deonta Foreman had 24 carries for 113 yards. And then DJ Moore had 4 receptions for 103 yards and a touchdown. All very, very impressive numbers. The Panthers are like the Raiders, where they have a good offense. They score points. It's just they don't come up with the win. Meanwhile, the Seahawks beat the Rams 27-23. I don't know if beating the Rams by that close of a margin is good or bad for the Seahawks, but there it is. Geno Smith was 28 of 39, 367 yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception, 116.1 passer rating. Very fantastic game by Geno Smith. And he also spread the ball around too. Tyler Lockett had 9 receptions for 128 yards and a touchdown. And DK Metcalf had 8 receptions for 127 yards and a touchdown. So based on those numbers, the Seahawks looked really good in their victory against the Rams. I think that like the Panthers have played some teams tough. Like they played the Ravens tough. They played the Ravens tough, and they played the Broncos tough in a victory. But they're looking towards next season. Sam Darnold is their quarterback right now, but I don't think that he's the future. I don't think a lot of the guys on the Panthers roster is the future. I do think they have a good defense, though, but I don't think it's going to be enough to stop Seattle. As much as I want the Panthers to win, because if the Panthers win, the Seahawks drop to 7-6, which really helps out the Commanders. As much as I want that to happen, don't think it's going to. I'm going to be going with the Seahawks on this one. All right, guys, so next up, we have the Miami Dolphins at the LA Chargers. This game is very, very important, particularly for the Chargers. So, like I said, the Dolphins lost to San Francisco 33-17. This is probably Tua's worst game as a pro this season. He was 18 of 33, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 79.7 passer rating. So this was his first loss in a game that he finished, because they lost the game where he almost died, but this is the first one where they've been convincingly beaten. And it happened, against the San Francisco 49ers team who had a third-string quarterback. I think that has more to do with the 49ers than the Dolphins, but still, this would be a very nice bounce-back game for the Dolphins. As for the Chargers, they lost to the Raiders 20-27. This was a game that they really did not need to lose, or this is a game they really needed to win more so, because, like I said, they were 6-5. They were in the playoff race, being 7-5, much better than 6-6, and they blew it. Justin Herbert was 28 of 47 for 335 yards, 1 touchdown, and an 88.5 passer rating. Now, the story of this game, the Chargers converted 9 for 9 on 4th downs. They converted 9 4th downs in this game, which is astounding, but it shouldn't have to come to that. Like you shouldn't have to convert fourth down after fourth down after fourth down like that to win a game. Justin Herbert did it, which is astonishing, but as a team, that's not good at all. That is not going to win you playoff games. That's not going to win you games in general, and it didn't in this one. The Dolphins are a much better team than the Raiders, and I have a suspicion that the Chargers are really going to start to fall in these last couple weeks. They really need to get it together. Beating the Dolphins at home like this would be big for their morale, and it would really reestablish themselves as playoff hopefuls. But if they lose again, they drop down to 6-7. If you imagine, like if the Raiders win, they'll be 6-7 along with the Chargers. But the Raiders will have a better divisional record, so they will skip over the Chargers, and the Chargers will have lost momentum again. It's a very Chargers thing for them to do. I am going to be going with the Dolphins, though. They need a good bounce-back win after a bad loss at San Francisco. While the Chargers' loss was also bad, I think the Dolphins are more likely to kind of reconfigure, rebuild, reestablish themselves. So I'm going to be going with the Dolphins on this one. And then last, but definitely not least, we have the New England Patriots at the Arizona Cardinals. Actually, I take this back. This is one of the more least games this week. Not much going on from either team. Kyler Murray is, he's not doing a whole lot for his team, and the Patriots are 6-6. If the Jets lose and the Patriots win, then the Patriots are one step further to backdooring themselves into the playoffs. So there is that to look at. Mac Jones was 22 of 36 for 195 yards and 1 touchdown. So, not a bad showing, but the team as a whole did not do well against the Bills on Thursday. As for the Cardinals, they lost in Week 12, so they had a bye last week. They lost to the Chargers 25-24. In that game, Kyler Murray was 18 of 29, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception for an 89.9 passer rating. So he played all right. But playing all right is not going to be enough because right now, the team is Kyler Murray. They're kind of implementing the Ravens approach where you build your team around an incredibly athletic star quarterback and you kind of let him carry the team. Kyler Murray is an impressive quarterback, an athletic quarterback, but I think he lacks the leadership that a quarterback needs to have. I think that he lacks the clutch factor. He's still a young quarterback with a lot to learn, and I don't think the Cardinals have the pieces around him to really establish that. And with the contract that Kyler Murray got, he is turning into a liability a little bit. The team succeeds and fails off of Kyler Murray, which is not good. And they've seen it in this season because they have not looked good at all. I think that this is a game that the Patriots are going to win. One of the perks of having a good coach like Bill Belichick is you're not going to lose games like this. You're not going to lose a game against an inferior team like the Cardinals. So I think the Patriots are going to win, and I think they're going to win pretty big. So those are our picks. Now it's time to look at the playoff picture. NFC, right here. Not much has changed. The Eagles and Vikings are still 1-2 at 11-1 and 10-2 respectively. The 49ers are 8-4 at the 3rd seed, and the Buccaneers are 6-6 at the 4th seed. So they're at 500 now. Good for them. Now, the only main difference is the Cowboys are, the 5th seed, the Giants are still the 6th seed, and then the Seahawks move up to the 7th seed once again. And then in the hunt, we have, all right, I'm going to take out the 10th seed here because the 10th seed is all but eliminated here. But now on the bubble, we have the Washington Commanders, 7-5-1. Very much still in this. If Seattle or the Giants lose, the Commanders move up. And then at the 9th seed, we have the Detroit Lions at 5-7. The only chance the Lions really have is if they win out and either the Giants or the Seahawks it would have to be both. It would have to be either the Giants, Seahawks, or Commanders just plunge and lose out basically for them to be contenders. So it looks like right now the odd man out is the Commanders. It's a 3-man carousel between the Giants, Seahawks, and Commanders for that 6, 7, and 8 seed because they all basically have a very similar record. They all have 7 wins. That tie helped the Commanders a lot. Obviously, a win would have put them over the top, but a loss would have been a lot worse. Because then the Giants would have been 8-4, the Commanders would have been 7-6, and now you're just competing with the Seahawks. But a tie makes it still possible for us to etch out the Giants. And they're playing the Eagles, so, you know, fingers crossed the Eagles don't get their second loss and they beat the Giants. The AFC is a bit more interesting. So, the number 1 seed is the Bills again. They're 9-3. Chiefs are number 2. They're also 9-3. Now we have the Ravens at the 3rd seed, who are 8-4. A very weak 8-4, if I do say so myself. And then the Tennessee Titans are 7-5. The Titans are not going to be challenged by anyone in their division, I don't think. The best team is the... Wow, now that I think about it, you got the Colts, Jaguars, and Texans. That's bad. You know, that is not a good spread. And so the Titans are comfortably in place of a weak division. As for the wild card, the Bengals are 8-4. They have the same record as the Ravens. The only reason they're the 5th seed and not the 3rd seed is because they have a worse division record. But with the way the Ravens have been playing, the Bengals are definitely better than the Ravens, and I think it's only a matter of time before the Bengals overtake them. The Dolphins are also 8-4. They're in a similar situation where it's like they're a very good team. They're going to make the playoffs. It's just going to be a matter of, you know, I guess they're only a game behind the Bills, but, you know, I don't think they're a better team than the Bills, but they're definitely a playoff team. Now, the 7th seed. The 7th seed right now is held by the New York Jets at 7-5. The Patriots and Chargers are both 6-6, so they are within a game behind the Jets. However, the Raiders and Browns, Browns, and Steelers are all 5-7. So that means that they're 2 games back. If the Jets lose, this opens up a lot of those teams to get into the thick of things. So say the Steelers win and the Raiders win. They're both 6-7. The Jets are 7-6. Say the Patriots win 7-6. The Chargers lose 6-7. All those teams are within a game of competing. And guys like Mike Tomlin, guys like Bill Belichick, they're going to be telling their guys, listen, we are not out of the woods we are not out of this just yet. The Jets are looking pretty vulnerable. They're playing the Bills this week, so they could very easily lose. The Patriots are playing the Cardinals. Again, a very winnable game for the Patriots. So I expect that 7th seed in the AFC to really start flipping and flopping. So that is my picks for Week 14. We're coming down to the wire. I can't believe it's already Week 14. Pretty soon I'm going to be all done with this. But anyway, those are my reviews. Thank you all once again for watching. I really appreciate all the support. And I will see you guys next week. Take care, guys.